Hi beautiful, welcome to my channel. In today's video we are going to be talking about this absolutely massive palette right here. This is from BPerfect Cosmetics. It is the Carnival Antidote palette, I believe in collaboration with Stacey Marie, and I cannot wait to show you what is inside this beautiful palette right here. I can't wait to show you swatches, give you my first impressions, try on the shades, show you some looks, and just tell you everything you need to know about this huge, beautiful palette right here. So if you are excited for the video, then just keep on watching. So let me first show you the inside of the palette and tell you what they have to say about it. It says, "Hey color junkies, prescription no longer pending. Consider your antidote prescribed. Introducing the fourth installment to the iconic Carnival collection, the Antidote palette, a stunning romantic color story with a carnival twist." BPerfect Cosmetics is a company from the UK. The palette retails for £39.95. I went to my transaction history to see exactly how much I paid for it. Hold on, it locked me out. They do have a US warehouse and they recommend that you order from the US warehouse in order to get your palette a little sooner. And with shipping included, I ended up paying $64.85 for this massive palette. So now that you've seen the palette, I want to show you kind of how I divided it in my mind, because I feel like this palette can be very overwhelming, but it has three very definitive color stories. I need some paper towel to show you. So the first three rows right here are a really warm yellow color story. Any of these colors right here you can pair with one another. They definitely look like they belong together to form some really beautiful, warm, romantic eyeshadow looks. Another color story from the palette that is extremely clear is the greens right here at the end. So again, any of these colors would absolutely go with one another. There is no color pairing right here that can possibly go wrong. These colors are meant to be together, and so that is the second very clear color story that this palette has. And then this is tricky, don't laugh at me, but these right here are the colors in the center, the three center rows, and in here you can see a very clear neutral color story. Again, any of these colors will go together perfectly. No way you can do anything wrong here. The colors are meant to go together. And then this center of the palette right here is great for if you want a palette that still has some very nice nude wearable colors, but you are willing to kind of expand and play with some color at the same time. The palette, absolutely massive, but it is an eyeshadow lover's dream. I think they released it at exactly the perfect time of year, because with fall coming along, any look that you can get with this palette would be absolute perfection for the season. Now, since this is my first time trying these eyeshadow palettes and eyeshadow palettes from BPerfect Cosmetics period, when I swatched the eyeshadows, I kind of gave you guys my first impressions of how the formula felt. So let me go ahead and show you the swatches. Okay, so here are the swatches of what we're going to call the warm palette, or the warmer side of the palette. As you can see, a bunch of really vibrant yellow, orange, some plum shades. There is this one peachy shade right here. I'm not going to go over every shade, but let me give you my first impressions. Since this is my first time touching this formula, I will say, well, the swatches look really beautiful and vibrant. I did have a little bit of trouble with a couple of the shades. The first one right here, I had to go over several times for it to look that nice and vibrant, and the second, this yellow right here, I also had to go over a few times, and even then it's not super intense, or just at least not as intense as it looks on the pan. The shimmers for the most part felt extremely pigmented, very rich and creamy. The matte, on the other hand, felt a little bit more dry, and that's why I had to keep going back to the shade and build them up, because they wouldn't glide as easily. But that doesn't mean much, because what matters is how they perform once you touch them with a brush and whether or not they're going to blend on my eyes. So take one last look right here at these beautiful swatches. Let's move on to the middle of the palettes. Okay, so here are the swatches for the middle section of the palette, and I have to say This middle section excites me so much. It is basic but beautiful. Just look at the finish of the metallic shades in this one. They're so gorgeous, and like in the first section, the shimmers glide beautifully. No complaints about any of the shimmer shades. I think that they're going to perform beautifully. I really love the colors of the metallic shades in this one, and I think for the most part even the mattes felt a little bit more glidey. Except for these first two, I did really struggle with these as well. But all of these middle mattes and these back here, they all performed beautifully. And they swatched more softly than the warm mattes did. So that is something to keep in mind. And I'm super excited to get to play with this middle section here because it looks absolutely lovely. So now let's move on to the greens. Okay, so here we have the green section of the palette, and with this one I have kind of conflicting thoughts. First of all, I love the color range. Second of all, some of the mattes were kind of on the harder, more dry side, and some of the mattes were very creamy. I think you can kind of clearly see it from the swatches. Like this section of mattes right here gave me a little bit of a hard time, yet this section of mattes right here was so glidey and buttery. The metallic shimmer shades just as good as the metallic shimmer shades in the rest of the palette, and I'm obsessed with these two colors right here. I think we can come up with some really beautiful looks with this palette. And one thing to keep in mind is if you look at the palette by sections the way I'm doing, you can combine any of those shades together and create beautiful looks every time. Every single one of these shades goes with one another without any issue. Just take a look right over here. These shades are so beautiful. Okay, so now that you've seen the swatches and kind of what I thought about the eyeshadows, I can't wait to get into the eyeshadow looks, and trust me, you are going to love them. This one right here that I'm wearing, the most boring one. The other two looks were so fun to make, so colorful, so playful, but still very wearable looks, and I cannot wait to show you. So let's go ahead and get started with the eyeshadow looks. I think if I'm going to be creating 3 looks with this palette, it makes sense that I use the 3 different subdivisions of the palette that I was telling you guys about. I might maybe dip into 1 or 2 colors from a different section of the palette, but I think for the most part I'll be sticking to the different color stories when doing these eye looks, because I think that's just what makes the most sense. To begin with, I have the color Pretty Peachy on a fluffy brush from Rephr. This is the Rephr number 15, and I'm going to put it on the crease of the inner part of the eye right here. So just back and forth, I'm doing windshield wiper motions with that shade. I think I remembered this one being one of those shades that I really struggled swatching, but see, now that I'm blending it on the eye with the brush, it's not really giving me any troubles. It's not looking patchy. It's blending easily, and the color is building up nicely as well. Switching to the color Fall, we're going to do the outer part of the eye with it. And this is going to be my outer transition shade, and we'll sort of mix it right here through the middle. I knew I had to use this color Fall from when I swatched the shades because it's one of my favorite mattes from this palette, to be honest. It's just such a pretty unique shade. It's not peachy, it's more on the pinky side, but also it's got some peach to it. I don't know, I really liked it. Back with the number 14 and a little bit more of this first color just to intensify the shade right here. And I only switched brushes because this one already has the darker shade and I didn't want to change this inner color right here. I mean, so far I can't complain. That looks really beautiful. To intensify this outer corner shade, I'm going to use the color Sweet Cheeks right here, and I'm using my Rephr number 1 brush, and I'm just first patting it all over this outer corner, and then I'm going to blend it upwards a little bit into that first color, and I'm swiping it up to like really fully blend it. I wanted to apply this color because I still love that crease color back here so much, and I didn't want to change it, and I felt like this was the perfect color not to change my crease shade. So for my eyelid right here, I actually want to use this gold, and this is from the Center palette, the more neutral palette, and this is the color Simmer. It is the most beautiful gold. I feel like golds don't impress me anymore because there's so many of them. Ooh, I just blinked that away. Anyways, golds don't impress me anymore because I have so many of them, but I don't think I have a gold like this one, to be honest. It's like more vibrant and like a lighter tone of gold than I'm used to. I don't know, I really liked it when I swatched it and I wanted to use it. So I think it goes perfect with this eye look as well. We'll call this the top of the first look. I'm really pleased with the way this looks. So I'm going to put some makeup around and I'll be right back to finish it up. Okay, back with some makeup on. Let's do the under eye area. Just to try a couple more colors, I'm going to get the color Aubergine with my Rephr number 3 brush, and I'm going to use this one right underneath my lower lash line. Back and forth with my Rephr number 3. That's a pretty intense shade. I kind of like it. So that it matches the top of the eye, I'm going to just smoke it out with the color Pretty Peachy and my Rephr number 13 brush. Back and forth, just wiping that more yellow toned down shade. And for the inner corner, mostly for lack of a better color, I'm going to grab the color Oyster and put it right here in the inner corner of the eye. This is my Rephr number 2 brush that I'm using. Blend it in a little bit. Okay, so here's the finished first look with this palette. Let me go ahead and curl my lashes, put on mascara, and I'll show you the final first look. Okay, I am back, and this right here is the final first look with this palette. I'm using some Kiss lashes, and to be honest, I think a few years back I would have been all about this color story, but I've changed and I'm no longer into the warm fiery colors as much as I used to be. I think it complements my eye color, it brings it out, and you know, I like it. But I just don't go for these types of colors as often anymore. Although this is definitely the time of year to wear these colors. I wish the inner corner shade wasn't this one. I wish it had like a super light inner corner highlighter shade with just a hint of gold to it. That would have been perfect for this eye look. But I couldn't find that here, so I just went with this one and it goes together okay. Let me know what you guys think and let's move on to the second look. Let's begin the second look, and for this one I want to use the green side of the palette. I'm going to start with a nice fluffy brush and the color Suede, which I thought was such a pretty, very light olive shade. And I'm going to put that one on the inner part of the eye. A little bit more suede, I just wanted to build it up. Then with that same fluffy brush, I'm going to switch to the color Moss, and Moss is going to be the outer part of the crease right here. I'm doing this kind of eye look because I think that when I do these more gradient looks, I can use more colors than when I do, say, a halo eye. And so since this palette has so many colors and I want to try a lot of them, I think it makes sense to do this type of eye look. So this is the color Moss, which is beautiful, really lovely. Okay, I have my Rephr number 13 brush and I'm going to do Suede on the edge of it just to soften this upper edge a little bit. I want to darken it up with the color Antidote, which is the name of the palette. So I'm going to use my Rephr number 14 and I'm going to tap that shade on the outer corner here. Tap it. And once it's placed, I'm going to start doing little circles around it to buff it into the lighter colors. On my finger, I have a little bit of the color Granite and I'm going to put it right here on the edge of the dark green. That looks so pretty. And then different finger and the color Silvery, which was one of the most impressive colors to me. I'm going to tap that one all the way in. It's like the lightest silvery green shade. It's beautiful. I had to switch to the other hand so that I could get into the inner corner better. Okay, I'm obsessed. Nothing to add, nothing to blend, nothing to take off. This is perfect. Let me do some face makeup and I'll be right back and we'll finish this look up. Back with some makeup on, and to finish up this look, I want to use the color Moss right underneath the inner part of my lower lash line here. I really thought that would match, and it does. That color is beautiful under there. And then I am going to use the color Antidote underneath the eye as well, just because I want to match the top, and that color was so perfect. And this is my Rephr number 12 brush. And I'm going to blend this out with the color Suede, back and forth, and I'm using my Rephr number 13. Smoke everything out. For the inner corner, I want to use the color Glisten, and this is my Rephr number 2 brush. Glisten is a beautiful inner corner color. I really love it. Okay, so this right here is the second look before mascara or lashes. I will be right back with mascara and lashes on, and I'll show you what that looks like. I'm back with some mascara and lashes on, and this right here is the final second look with this palette. I'm obsessed with this color story, obsessed with the greens, and honestly everything blended so seamlessly, so easily. The mattes, even the ones that seemed a little bit more on the dry side, all performed so beautifully. I don't know, this is colorful for me, but I'm loving every bit of it. Let's go ahead and begin the third look, and I'm starting with the color Dove on a big fluffy brush. This is a very light matte color, and you can totally use it as a base all over the eye, which is what I'm doing right now. And it's also the perfect highlight for right underneath your eyebrow. I personally don't love super shiny under the brow highlights. I prefer a matte one, so it's perfect for that. And I'm just distributing it all over my eye as a base as well. Then I'm going in with the color Bonbon on the inner part of the crease right here. I'm using a Rephr number 15 brush, which is a really nice and soft fluffy brush, and I'm putting that color Bonbon on the inner half of the crease of my eye, just back and forth blending in windshield wiper motions. Same fluffy brush in the color Dusty Rose, and that's going to be the outer corner of the eye and the outer half of the crease. Back and forth with Dusty Rose. A little bit more, and make sure that you blend any upper edges up here so that it blends nicely into our base color. I'm also going to use Dusty Rose on a smaller brush. This one is my Rephr number 1, and that's going to be the color that I'll darken up the inner corner of my eyelid with, and I'll blend it slightly into the color Bonbon right here to meet with the same color right here on the outer corner. Okay, just like this. And then with the same Rephr number 1 brush, I grab the color Chestnut, and I'm going to darken up the outer corner of the eye with it. So I'm tapping it right here on the outer V of the eye and blending it into the crease ever so slightly with the tip of my Rephr number 1 brush. Just doing little circles around the area so that it blends into Dusty Rose. I'm running a clean brush through the edge up here so that the colors really diffuse nicely. This is a Rephr number 12, but any clean brush will do. So then with the tip of my finger, I grab the color Cutie Pie, and I'm going to put it right here over the edge of the matte on either side of my eye. I'm just basically leaving a little space in the center. So I'm tapping Cutie Pie over both edges right here. And then I'm going in with the color Oyster right through the center of the eyelid. Just tap, tap, tap it with your finger. Alright, and so this right here is what I have for the top of the third look. Let me go ahead and put on some face makeup, and I'll be right back and we'll finish it up. I'm back with makeup on, and I went ahead and put the Pillow Talk eyeliner in the waterline of my eye right here. So let's work on the under eye shadows next. So with my Rephr number 3 brush, I'm going to use the color Chestnut, which is the dark color only on the outer half back here. And then I'm grabbing my Rephr number 13 and the color Dusk. And this one I'm going to take on the inner half of the under eye and underneath the color Chestnut to smoke it out all the way back here. Back and forth blended. Lastly, for the inner corner, I have the color Oyster on my Rephr number 2 brush, and I'm going to tap it on the inner corner area and blend it in ever so slightly here. Okay, just like this. This is the finished eye look. Let me go ahead and put on some mascara, and I'll show you guys the final result. Okay, here I am with mascara on. I went ahead and put on my Patrick Ta mascara, which I reviewed in my last video and I have been obsessed with. I mean, you guys can see how long and thick and still separated my lashes look. I love it. Highly, highly, highly recommended. You can find the link to this one in the description box. It looks so freaking beautiful. Anyway, so this is the final look with mascara on. For this one, I am not going to put on falsies. I'm going to skip them. Let me give you guys my final thoughts. I really hope that you enjoyed all 3 of the eyeshadow looks that I created with this palette. Obviously, there's so many more looks that we can create with this one, but I'm not going to do any more, so don't get excited. Just know that as long as you stay within the color stories that I showed you, literally you can do no wrong. Every single one of the colors will go perfect with one another, and if you feel confident enough, definitely you can dabble into some of the other shades, just like I did for today's video. My final thoughts on this palette: it is absolutely massive, but because you can kind of divide it into different color stories, I personally don't think it's very overwhelming, and I think that if you guys try to look at it that way, it won't be overwhelming for you either. I think the price took me a little bit by surprise because I hadn't converted to US dollars in my mind, so when I saw the final price I was like, oh, that was not as affordable as I thought that it would be. However, it is a massive palette. You are getting so many eyeshadows in here. You will not get tired of playing with them. So obviously the higher price is totally understandable. I feel like a third of this palette is like the same size as like a regular palette that we usually buy, and if you divide the $64 and some cents that I paid for this huge palette by 3, you're paying $21 US and 33 cents for the size of like a normal eyeshadow palette, but you're getting 3 palettes in one. I hope that made sense. I tend to make things confusing, so I apologize. Anyways, I really did like the palette, and while when I swatched it, I was a little bit apprehensive at the shades being a little bit on the dry side because they all didn't swatch as beautifully as I would have hoped for. When I went ahead and used the shadows on my eyes, I really didn't have any problems with patchiness, dryness, or the shadows not blending into one another. I felt like every single matte shadow that I used today blended into the other beautifully, and the metallic shades that come in the palette are absolutely stunning. You can apply them with a brush or with your fingers, no problems at all whatsoever. So overall, I really did like this palette. If you've been thinking about it, I do highly recommend it. I enjoyed playing with it. Know that most of the looks you're going to get are going to be quite on the like colorful, dramatic side, but if you're someone who wants to like just dabble into color, I think this palette also gives you that opportunity. You can use primarily the shades right in the middle and just grab for 1 or 2 of the colorful shades to incorporate into your more neutral look, and that will give you more confidence to just start playing with some color as well. I really hope that you guys liked the video. If you did, don't forget to please give it a thumbs up before you leave. If you're new to my channel, my name is Patty, and I would love it if you were here to stay. So please don't leave without subscribing. I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here, and I hope to see you back in the next video. Bye!